Leo is an old demon lord who was reincarnated into the distant future due to an ongoing battle with the celestial angels. Within this timeline, he is blessed with insanely gorgeous concubines and unearthly magic capable of decimating an entire island. Stick to the end to discover the awesome perks this Dark Lord has gained throughout adventures. Behold, brethren, the empire of the great demon lord. As his undead army marched on, they engaged in a fierce battle against the celestial angels. The ultimate war of Armageddon was upon us, and the heavens sent their best warriors to thwart the progress of the devil. The invasion was underway, and the angels kept on resurrecting their soldiers and swarming the palace grounds. They even brought along their mighty dragons, and the fortress was under siege. The diabolical demon lord was growing anxious. His allies had fallen, and the dragon alongside the angel were drawing near. His maids started advising him to retreat, since they were no match for the heavenly battalion. It seemed that defeat was imminent, and his stronghold was about to crumble right before his very own eyes. The angels unleashed their ultimate trump card, and just as Magnus, the demon lord, was about to retaliate, his companions told him to live and fight another day since he was the only remaining demon lord. He went underground as his fortress crumbled and vowed vengeance against the whole of creation. 1,000 years later, two fine-looking cherry plum soldiers went into the ruins looking for clues of void activity. That's new lingo for demons, by the way. The blonde was Regina, and the pink-haired was Celia. They sure were cute. What were they doing exploring dangerous ruins? Sounds like the opening of a freaky thriller drama. They went deeper, and upon finding a huge door, Regina gave up hope, while Celia tried deciphering it. She told her to go ahead without her, and managed to open it, using her divine touch. That's when she discovered a giant crystal with someone inside. Could it be the infamous demon lord? Elsewhere, the devil of the hour was summoned by Roselia, the angel of death, it seems. She warned him of the upcoming danger and bid him farewell, informing him to await further orders. Who was she? In the meantime, Celia tried shooting the indestructible crystal and seemed to be getting nowhere. The demon lord awoke and blasted his way out through sheer force. Upon gazing at her beauty, he was astounded, and that's when he realized his transformation into a human. She took him for a poor lost kid, and it seemed that his reincarnation plan failed miserably. Unbeknownst to her, he was the harbinger of doom, and that's when she tried inspecting him and held him tight as her melons suffocated him. What an unexpected, yet pleasant turn of events, as he cursed his feeble body and transformation. She gave him some food and introduced herself as Celia, a swordsman and member of the 18th platoon. He told her his name was Leonis, but hid the fact that he was a former demon lord. No one knew who he was, and she promised to rescue him, since she thought he was kidnapped. As Regina was facing problems of her own inside the ruins, Celia explained the concept of voids and how they were a major threat to humanity. Their outbreak changed the entire landscape, and all of a sudden a loud bang was heard, and Celia jumped on him to shield him from the debris. A nasty-looking ogre void attacked, and her gun was no different than a water pistol, to be honest. She tried shooting it down but failed until Regina came to save the day. Our heroic feline used a weapon called Holy Sword to inflict serious damage upon it. The two stood there looking like total imbeciles, and seeing as how they both were weak, they tried running away like a bunch of worthless cowards. They almost made it to the exit when another void attacked. This time it was a wyvern, whatever that is. Looked like a nasty dragon who slashed Celia in one strike. Her distraction was quite the costly mistake, if I must say. She started to bleed out and bid him goodbye like a tragic Indian rom-com. Another beast emerged, and she tried begging him to run. She drew her last breath, and this reminded Leo of his past. He put up a barrier to block the void's attack and unleashed a massive gravitational spell to crush the wyvern and his friends like pancakes. Using his ancient magic, he crushed the wyvern with a gravitational spell and fire. This sure was one tough cookie. How powerful is he in actual reality? He then proceeded to resurrect his new loved one, and the process was fully complete. Her wounds were healed, and Regina finished things on her end and tried getting in touch with them. This isn't even an isekai, and he is this powerful. I wonder what he looked like in his prime. Celia was glad he saved her, and insisted he healed her instead. After all, these humans weren't acquainted with the idea of resurrection. Celia then continued to explain the concept behind holy swords and how it emerged to combat the demons. Everyone was imbued with a unique set of skills upon birth, and this was starting to sound similar to Nen from Hunter x Hunter. Regina came along and congratulated them on their victory. Since they felt pity for Leo, they placed him on the bike and kept teasing the perv for being lewd, and honestly, who could blame him? They were quite tempting. He was holding on to dear life and had a firm grasp of Celia's melons. Regina did not hold back either and felt envious of their relationship. Soon after, Leo laid his eyes upon the holy capital, and boy oh boy was it marvellous. We were then taken 6 years back during the Void War, when Regina and Celia were still little kids. Their hometown was under attack by vicious voids, and they took shelter inside a bunker. Everyone seemed terrified, and the situation was quite dire outside. Regina was terribly afraid, but Celia tried motivating her like she was the next David Goggins. They talked about joining the army in the future and helping the country get back to what it used to be. They heard a loud scream outside and everyone started panicking. Once was all said and done, the gates opened and they went out. However, the entire city was destroyed and everything was in shambles. Their families were gone and nothing was left behind. Celia broke down to tears, and we were then brought to the present, where Leo was dumbfounded by humanity's evolution. They explained how everything worked and the complexities behind the building this mega infrastructure. Afterwards, Celia bragged about his holy sword with the properties to heal wounds in an instant, and they encouraged him to go through inspection, since he was about to enroll inside the Excalibur Academy. Celia instructed him not to worry and to trust them from here on out. After explaining the basics to him, they bid him good luck and left. Leo entered the inspection room and immediately summoned his subordinates. A wolf and a maid congratulated his awakening and told him they'd support his cause no matter what. However, they did not hesitate to throw shade at his failed transformation. Our petite demon lord gave them instructions to scout the area and provide him with all the info they could scour. Now this guy is planning on world invasion. He was planning to infiltrate their ranks and uncover all their secrets before overthrowing their government. What a shrewd plan, if I must say. He then went through the inspection area, which analysed every tissue and fibre inside of his body. At one point, the alarms started blaring, and he immediately suppressed his mana. He was almost labelled a threat, but luckily Celia came and took his ID for safekeeping. I guess she still considers him as her little brother after all. Big sis got you covered. No need to worry about the trivialities. She then proceeded to give him a quick tour of the city and the people. Leo was shocked by all of this, since his knowledge consisted of a single fortress, as opposed to all these architectural masterpieces. Everything was state-of-the-art and showcased the brilliance humanity has been able to reach. Her explanations went over his head, and our boy seemed visibly confused to the point of exhaustion. Celia was feeling tired after the intense battle, but she mustered up her strength and showed him their campus. However, while walking, a bully kept on teasing the poor damsel. Since she was the only one who didn't unlock her holy sword, she was the topic of ridicule. He tried bossing her around and even insisted she join his harem gang. The ladies seemed to have dead eyes, and it was obvious they were under some sort of mind control. His attitude was starting to piss off Leo, who took matters into his own hand and forced the douchebag to succumb. Talk about real power, that's Leo for you. Another student by the name Elphine showed up and scared him away using a powerful holy sword artifact. I guess she must be considered an elite, huh? Her spheres were holy swords capable of collecting and analysing data, and it was painfully obvious that holy swords were vastly unique according to each user. This reminds me of grimoires from Black Clover. You were given whatever you were born with. Celia was feeling dizzy and took him back to their dorm. She welcomed him to their platoon and tried introducing him to Regina, who was sound asleep, so she took him to her room. Oh, you lucky dog. What are you going to do next? She made him take a shower, but the concept was new to him. As such, she went in and helped him out. Would you look at that? It's his first day on Earth and he has already bagged a hottie. This guy has some next-level riz. Celia took the opportunity to beg him to join their platoon and fight alongside them, since his powers were beyond incredible. Just then, Celia fainted, and Leo unlocked her mark. Upon waking her up, she sucked on his neck like a vampire, and that's when he informed her of the resurrection spell. Talk about a plot twist. The next day, Celia was fighting simulated robots and grew frustrated by the lack of a holy sword. She was using basic attack patterns and didn't seem to make a dent. The arrogant prick Musil came along, provoking her emotions and tantalizing her once again. This time around, Regina came to her defense and threatened to blow his head off. He backed off, but Celia felt depressed, since she wasn't able to stand up for her right. She went to bed and Leo woke her up to tell her a secret. He started off by informing her of his origins as a sorcerer, leaving out the demon lord aspect of it and how he was reincarnated to this world. Afterward, he informed her that she was actually dead and that he used his sorcery to resurrect her as a vampire queen. Whoa, I did not see that coming. Vampires and demon lords, this show sure is fascinating. This was too much for Celia to handle, since she had no choice in the matter, and made her lose hope of ever obtaining a holy sword. She then told him about her past, and how her entire family were killed during the stampede, and this was the reason she fought so hard. Leo assured her how she'd become even more powerful than before, and just then, his belly rumbled, forcing them to immediately head to the cafe. There were a lot of options to choose from, courtesy of modern technology. Leo informed her how food wouldn't be converted to mana, since she was now an undead. However, since my guy was dead broke, Celia offered to pay for him. His manhood wouldn't allow it, and he showed her a gold coin, which was useless in this day and age, since everything ran on credit and artificially created silver. Meanwhile, two thugs tried hustling a female swordsman, Sakuya, who owed them money and refused to pay up. The swordsman was a Zorro badass type, and it seems she was friends with Celia and apologized for not coming to the ruins with her. The guys were chasing her due to unpaid casino bills. That's when she introduced herself to Leo and admired his talents with the holy sword. Seems word got out really quickly. Afterward, they sat together to eat, and Sakuya informed him that she sought revenge for her family after the void wiped out her entire family and clan. Soon after, Leo went to test his powers at the training center. He summoned his demonic staff, and before they officially started, he ended up destroying the void simulators in a flash, surprising everyone. What an absolute monster. The douchebag, Musel, came along and challenged him to a fight to test his real strength. Leo agreed to his stipulations and they had no objections. He summoned his holy sword to fight, but Celia insisted she help out. This was going to be exciting. They made a wager and went at it like the bitter rivals they were. Celia, in particular, seemed quite upset, almost like she was trying to vent out her frustration on them. While she dealt with the female warriors with ease, Leo barely broke a sweat using his mage attributes. Together, these duo were unstoppable, and Regina came to witness the fierce battle underway. Celia tried going after Musel, who froze her in place using his holy sword. Was it a paralysis jutsu? Just as he was about to attack Leo, her tenacity to save him helped her unlock her holy sword. Atta girl. I knew she had it in her. Using it, she broke his sword and freed the girls from his enslavement. Our girl finally did it. Regina hugged her in excitement, and they decided to celebrate their victory. Back at home, Leo kept calling her his minion while she referred to him as her little brother. She then made him promise to make her even stronger and shook hands. Afterward, they all gathered to celebrate the special occasion, and Celia in particular was on cloud 9. She wanted to give her holy sword a name, but couldn't think of anything. The girls started flirting with Leo and argued over his sleeping arrangement. However, he decided to sleep with Celia since she was his first crush. He then went to Elfine to get registered, and she explained how the world worked. Elfine used to be a warrior on the front lines, until she saw her comrades die in her arms and lost the will to fight. While she was showering, he was studying the map she gave him and how the entire landscape had changed. After summoning his wolf to learn more about the surrounding, the terrifying beast informed him of the power plant the humans were building and why it posed a threat to their plans. It was used to distribute mana to the city, and the maid brought him some donuts. Looks like she was getting comfortable in the human world. Instead of doing reconnaissance, she was out grabbing snacks and told him how no one knew of the Demon Lord or the major war that transpired a millennia ago. The maid was upset since he resurrected another minion, and Elfin walked in looking stunning, if I might say. Quite the journey we have ahead of us. Meanwhile, soldiers were diving deep into the ocean and were brutally massacred, sparking an alarm. We were then shown a flashback of when Leo was still a teenager. The guy escorting him called him a hero and kept praising his efforts for defeating the Demon Lord. He was then ambushed by a bunch of mercenaries, trapped and killed on the spot. Their binding spells and keen tactics were too much for him to handle, and it seems they hated him because he was a righteous hero. How unfortunate. As his life was starting to fade away, that's when Roselia came to recruit him to her team and used her sorcery to resurrect him. She was the only one who empathized with his cause, and asked him to join her in destroying the system. Leo woke up in the present, feeling tired, and commanded Celia to do the same. She realized that he had complete command over her using the mark on his hands and felt ashamed when he chastised her for being weak. Seems like she had a midnight snack, and they suddenly received a call from Elphine telling them of a monster attack and an immediate meeting. It seems the research team was missing, and they caught wind of it. Elsewhere, high-ranking commanders were inside a meeting trying to deduce what happened to the soldiers underwater. Based on the preliminary analysis, they found roots and deduced it could be some sort of void attack. The entire platoon was wiped out in a matter of seconds, 3 seconds to be exact. Seeing as how dire the situation was, they instructed everyone to eliminate the void without hesitation. Since this seemed like a new mutated void, they didn't have the option to stand back and wait till it destroyed everything they cared for. In the meantime, they wanted everyone to withdraw and shelter themselves at the resource facilities. The general volunteered to scout the area and told them not to worry. Meanwhile, Celia was practicing her new holy sword, and she seemed to have gotten better. All the hard work was paying off, and it was obvious she had more room to grow and develop, in both ways than one. As a result, Leo used his sorcery to create a barrier and summoned a bunch of undead soldiers. Quite the training regimen she's going through. The skeletons were no joke and kept on storming her.
I won't hold back!
However, Celia was no pushover, and she thanked him for helping her and offered to buy him some food. While heading back home, Sakuya found the wolf and decided to be friends with him. Imagine if these two hit it off, they'd be an unstoppable duo. She then went in and started bragging about the new friend she made. Elphine, on the other hand, was busy trying to analyze the attack on the soldiers. Her holy sword was super useful and served as a satellite of sorts. Celia, on the other hand, took Leo on a ride while his maid was trying to work at a pastry shop. Things seemed to be progressing well for everyone. Coincidentally, Celia dropped by at the same shop to buy pastries, sparking the maid's jealousy. Did she have the hots for Leo or something? Celia then took him to an orphanage, where she volunteered and helped out. This triggered his own memory and made him feel nostalgic. Afterward, they went in and Celia insisted on cooking them a meal.
Complaining.
Soon after, tremors were heard throughout the city, and the roots had invaded their food supply, sparking disaster for everyone. In another flashback, Leo was with his companions while ogres were attacking town. He took the initiative and started slashing the ogres left and right, and that's how he was known as the hero. Meanwhile, the commanders were discussing about ways to stop the void which had infiltrated their city. Elphine got on a call with them to reveal her findings and informed them of a disruption in one of the blocks. This implied that the void infiltrated the undergrounds and was closer than they imagined. Leave it to Elphine to discover a vital truth. Back at the orphanage, everyone was gobbling up their food. After all, Celia seems like the ideal waifu material to me. Elsewhere, soldiers were attacked by the vines underground, sending the commanders into a state of panic. They were highly vulnerable down there since that was where the power plant was located, their source of energy. Just then, the vines invaded their power plant. Sounds like another disaster is upon us. It destroyed their guns and started sucking the energy out of the power plant. Voids started descending from everywhere. And this event triggered all the weapons to be unleashed. It was an all-out war, and everyone was ready to give it their all.
Energy supply.
Celia was growing worried, and Leo gave the command to protect the humans for the time being. Dragons were circling their area, and Celia was determined to save the orphanage by any means possible. She took down a few, and Leo dealt with the rest. However, more threats descended one after the other. Sakuya used her sword to eliminate them while Regina provided backup. Out of nowhere, A gigantic hydra and an enormous dragon came forth. Leo had no option but to use his sorcery. Level 10 spell which summoned fire blasts. When that failed to work,
Celia, get out of there!
he used his gravitational spell and crushed it to the ground. This led the ground to shatter and the vines to capture Celia. The Void was someone Leo was familiar with, Arakael. In another flashback, we saw Leonis strolling into the palace after he became the undead king. My guy was looking scary and formidable. He even brought his spoils of war to Roselia and informed her of his conquest. She commended his efforts and bestowed a powerful sword upon him. A demon sword which can only be wielded in certain conditions. This was the most powerful sword known to demons and was a special heirloom. Back in the present, Leo was attempting to attack Arakael, but the monster managed to escape underground. Leo then summoned Blackus and commanded him to go look for his vampire princess. He warned him of the threat the calamity posed and instructed him to go all out in the battle. Before he left, he told the orphans not to worry and constructed a barrier to keep them protected. How thoughtful of our demon lord. Who would have known he'd gain compassion so soon? Meanwhile, Sakura and Regina were fighting the Hydra head-on, but it didn't seem to budge an inch. Leo gave them a call and instructed him to back away for now and locate Celia. After telling him where she was, he headed there straight away to save his harem from destruction. As soon as he found his nemesis, he shot fire blasts at him, but they did no damage. His vines started attacking him and they both fought like they were long-time enemies. Oh wait, they were.
Watch out!
Celia was growing desperate, and using every ounce of strength, she summoned her holy sword and broke free using Leo's support. Things were starting to get desperate, and Leo was ready to use the demonic sword Roselia bestowed upon him. The only condition to activating it was protecting his friends and loved ones. Now that he has found companion, he was able to use its full power to eradicate Arakael once and for all. Talk about sheer power. After using the sword, he was completely exhausted, and Celia came to show him some support and love, if you know what I mean. Since the power plant was destroyed, they resorted to using solar energy to fuel their city. Meanwhile, Leo tried using the admin bureau to gather some info and was refused. Luckily for him, Regina came along and used her privilege to go in. They found a huge library inside just then. They both received a text inviting them to celebrate the arrival of the princess. Even Celia called to ask him out, but he blew her off and focused his attention to Regina instead. This guy sure is a player. Elsewhere, a couple of monsters were planning to invade the Empire, and while squabbling, a creepy-looking hottie, Sharnak, came to suggest a plan. Using her sorcery, she gave them the ability to use holy swords and greatly amplified their power.
It's a holy sword?
In return for her gift, she wanted them to kidnap the holy swordsman for her, as sacrifice, of course. Witches are always the same, no matter what time or place. Back at the harbour, an enormous battleship arrived, and Leo was looking for a gift to present to Celia. On top of the battleship, the princess kept on waving to the people as a gesture of goodwill. Celia and the others met up with Leo, and he gave her the keychain as a gift. She was extremely grateful for it, but their conversation was interrupted by her childhood rival, Fenris, who tried to antagonize Celia into a fight. Inside the ship, the monsters attacked the guards and cut their faces off to steal their identity. What kind of twisted spell is this? Meanwhile, everyone was enjoying their time on the ship, and Leo was relaxing like a noble royal. The maid came to tempt him and reveal intel she found. She then criticized his stingy nature and left. Celia came back looking fine as a chocolate sundae and even taught our boy how to swim. How pathetic. A demon lord who can't swim. Later on, the monsters attacked the main guard and kidnapped the princess. They revealed themselves and took everyone hostage as well. This guy's mean business. Using the opportunity, Leo escaped and went looking for the princess, while Sharnak betrayed them and activated the ship's engine. Something smells fishy here. Regina ran into Leo on the ship and asked him to help her save everyone. That should have gone without saying, though, since his crush was in danger, and it was up to him to protect the innocent civilians. The demi-humans were no match for him, and he headed towards the damsel in distress. Meanwhile, the monsters were tantalizing the crew and mocking their weakness. Celia and Elphine hatched a plan using her holy sword and asked Celia to distract the guards. She found a pin on the ground and went to action. Regina and Leo, on the other hand, couldn't find the princess. After hearing of the bond they shared, he asked her to use her powers to contact her, and using a spirit medium they communicated. The princess notified them of her whereabouts and explained how the ship was about to crash to an iceberg. Leo broke the windows and asked her to take care of things. He then headed to save her while Regina stayed to deal with the incoming voids. Back in the main hall, Sakuya broke free and tried distracting them while Celia knocked one of them down and Elphine broke the bomb activation wand. They finally got a jump on them, and the day was saved by these heroic warriors. However, things weren't over since voids broke in through the window and launched simultaneous attacks on them. Despite their numbers, Sakuya and Celia were dealing with them easily and contacted our boy. Leo was also fighting the voids on his way to the princess, and Regina seemed like she had her hands full until the cavalry came to rescue her. Sakura dealt with the threat and proved once again why swords are the most lethal weapon in anime.
Access ship ahead.
Leo faced off against Sharnak, who kept throwing rudimentary spells. Even so, he trapped her using his shadows and started interrogating her. However, she was killed by a demonic blade which turned into a hideous spider, releasing more voids. Its teleportation was a nuisance to deal with, and Leo was in a pickle if this continued. Luckily, Regina came through and hacked the machine guns on the ship to serve as aid. She even launched the missiles at him, and Celia came flying by. The void monster kept on unleashing tiny minions, but they were no match for Celia. That's when Leo unsheathed his demon sword and used his secret technique to demolish the void in an instant. The princess summoned them to her royal chamber and praised their efforts. It seems Leo was feeling a bit down and headed back home. Even Regina was missing, since she was ashamed of meeting her. Back home, Leo was feeling debilitated and Regina came in to flirt a bit. Are these two about to hit off? Meanwhile, a bunch of reckless mercenaries were surrounded by the royal guard who were about to execute them when they heard a weird noise. A spell froze them in place, and a lonely figure commanded them to bow. Hold up, was that Leo? He sure sounded strange. The pretty lady and the wolf vowed to serve him from here on out and swore allegiance to his army. He proceeded to give them commands and was suddenly interrupted by a phone call from Celia. Now that was awkward. Elsewhere, our beautiful vampire princess was seen complaining and stormed Leo's room only to find the maid, who vanished in an instant, making her go crazy. She decided to take a quick shower and our boy teleported into the house only to find her changing. That's when Regina walked in and assumed they were bumping heads, if you know what I mean. Soon after, they sat down to eat a wholesome breakfast and started talking about the weird aura surrounding their dormitory. With the appearance of the black dog and the mysterious maid, it had everyone worrying for their safety. Leo tried brushing it off and tried talking about his training. Regina took charge and insisted they go ahead. They then headed to the battleground, where the audience was cheering for their victory. I suppose this was a team battle similar to a Call of Duty style. The gorgeous swordswoman was down in the front line, while the generals up above praised her efforts. Celia was struck by one of the wolves, and her nemesis, Fenris, did not hesitate to gloat and knock her down. These two had a bitter rivalry, and Fenris used her wolves to unleash hell upon Celia. She was trapped to the tree while Leo dealt with his side of things. This motivated our brave warrior to land the killing blow and gain the upper hand within the tournament. The upper echelon were impressed by her strategy and had high hopes. Afterward, they went to the bathroom and Celia kept on spoiling her little adorable munchkin. Regina kept on teasing the other ladies, and everyone was having fun inside the bath. They praised one another for their hard work on the battlefield, but realized they needed more training to strengthen their bond and teamwork. Leo was too shy and felt completely flustered. Elsewhere, the Void Lord was consuming demon swords in preparation for the upcoming battle. This guy is giving me Voldemort vibes. I wonder what he's planning next. Back in the city, Celia was summoned by the higher-ups and was debriefed of a calamity at a nearby island. Wait a minute. This wasn't an ordinary island. This was Celia and Regina's former hometown. It seems a distress signal was put out from the island, indicating the presence of survivors. After hearing this, Celia insisted on heading there immediately. Elphine interrupted and asked to take her equipment along for further research. Leo agreed to go with them, and the following day they were ready to head out when Leo held a small meeting with Blackus and the maid. He asked them to protect the city in his absence and went into the helicopter feeling pumped up. Regina tried provoking him into sleeping on her lap and tamed our boy using an ear pick. This reminded him of a time he bonded with Roselia and shared a fond moment. He promised to protect her no matter what, and that's when he woke up on Celia's lap. Soon after, they landed on the deserted island, which turned into an absolute wasteland. Celia suggested splitting up and checking every inch of the place, and as expected, Leo paired up with his loved one. His beautiful concubine started explaining how it looked like before, and they were ambushed out of nowhere by what seemed like an angel. Prior to their arrival, we are shown of another hottie, Arel, who seems to have resurrected in this world like Leo. She was looking super fine and got dressed to impress. While she was trying to think of her next course of action, the Void Lord came by seeking to induct her into his ranks. She didn't give two shits who he was, and intended to strike him down for his insolence. Yeah, the people of the past were built like that. All they knew was war and carnage and couldn't hold a civilized conversation to save their lives. The Void Lord summoned an angel, and we were flashed back to the present, where the same angel was wreaking havoc in the middle of the island. Leo erupted a barrier and tried fighting back, while Elphine and the others grew worried. The angel was putting up a decent fight and gave Leo a run for his money. However, our demon lord was beyond powerful and crushed the angel using a level 9 attack spell. He then headed back to Celia, who was gravely injured. Luckily, her healing abilities kicked in, and that's when they encountered ghosts of her past. The leading general of her father's army showed up and told them not to worry. Sir William approached and informed them of the distress signal they sent out. This was to warn them of the new Void Lord which emerged, threatening the peace of their city and current hometown. Since it merged with the power plant, its power was inconceivable, and this trepidation started getting to Celia. Sir Williams offered to take them to the mansion and prepared a car for them. Hold up, how were ghosts able to drive a limousine? This made no sense at all. Elsewhere, Sakuya and the gang ran into an injured Arel who launched at them. Sakuya volunteered to take her on, and these two went at it with finesse. It seems Arel was proficient with the blade and Sakuya gained victory over her. Meanwhile, the Void Lord was smirking in excitement as his masterpiece was about to come to life. Leo and Celia, however, were bonding in the car, and our vampire princess didn't hesitate to jump on him and suck the life out of his neck. As she was enjoying her snack, Elphine sent her a call and explained the current situation. That's when Celia informed her of the Void Lord and asked them to keep an eye out. Things were progressing quickly, and Leo took the time to gift her a dress. It was imbued with his power, and he told her to use it only if her life was on the line. Was it like a Power Ranger suit? He even added a couple of keychains for protection, and it was obvious he was worried. Meanwhile, Regina stitched Arel with some first aid kit and introduced themselves to her. That's when she revealed her battles with the Void and how they were in grave danger unless they acted promptly. Elphine was distrustful of her and kept on questioning her motives. Arel revealed that she was from the past, and Sakuya offered her a treat to regain her mana reserve. These guys were surely hitting it off. The maid was spying on their conversations while the Void Lord was prepared to unleash his final piece. Soon after, Celia and Leo made it back to the mansion, and this brought back fond memories of the time she was a kid. Even Leo was feeling nostalgic, and that's when Celia saw her previous room. She couldn't believe her eyes and broke down in tears. Luckily, the ghosts managed to recreate a hologram of the room and their memories. Now that's a handy trick. Unfortunately, the Void Lord interrupted her wholesome moment and threatened to end her suffering once and for all. Unleashing a vicious attack, he caught her dead to rights. The blast must have given her a concussion, since she started reminiscing the good old days when her father was forced to fight in the upcoming war. He told her to stand brave and promised to vanquish the Voids no matter what. As she woke up from her nap, she noticed a bunch of skeletons safeguarding them. It seems the keychains he gave her was meant to summon the undead, and the Void Lord was confronted by Leo, who caught him off guard. Celia showed her gratitude and introduced herself to the undead skeletons. However, these lively bunch started arguing, and that's when the Void Lord unleashed his aura, shocking our boy to the core. He retaliated, and a battle of ice and fire was upon us. Even so, Leo was unfazed by his petty threat, and the earth started to rumble, indicating the birth of his masterpiece. He bid them farewell and teleported out of there, but things weren't over just yet. Leo seemed to remember him, and before he could finish his thought, the rumbling grew worse and the skies erupted with the sight of a horrendous monster. The Mother Angel was reborn, sparking the fear of Regina and the gang. Elphine used her holy sword to initiate a relief package, whilst the Mother Angel slithered her way out of the cocoon. Celia started attacking, while Elphine told Regina and Sakuya to wait for backup. I doubt they'd listen to her, and a sneaky void ambushed their hideout. Meanwhile, the skeletons were holding their own against the voids who kept on regenerating, and this proved to be a huge nuisance to deal with. Leo informed them to aim for the head, since they were part serpents, and the gang started making tremendous headway all of a sudden. These undead were something else.
It's a similar ability.
You don't have to tell me!
And it seems Elphine used her holy sword to hijack a motor vehicle. Despite their relentless attacks, the voids were too many and had no end to them. Leo decided to attack the Mother Angel head-on and used his level 10 spell attack. However, his incineration was child's play to the angel, who wasn't even remotely injured. The angel decided to reciprocate and used her trump card to show them what real power feels like. A scene straight out of biblical tales, I tell you. A level 11 spell that rocked their world and caused them to panic. Leo asked them to protect him while he charged up, and that's when Celia and the skeletons went plus ultra in hopes of buying him some time. The vampire princess did her thing, while her lover boy unsheathed the infamous demon sword. However, it refused to attack, since the angel was actually Roselia. Oh wow, how did this happen? He tried attacking, but he lacked the necessary energy to penetrate her shield. Soon after, he was caught by one of her attacks, and it seems the end was nigh for our sorry bunch. Another level 11 attack was underway, and the vampire princess used the dress he gave her to land a critical blow. Hold up, why didn't she use this from the get-go? The skeletons kept the voids preoccupied while Celia was mourning the death of her lover. She embraced him in her hands and vowed to resurrect his spirit. Our boy Leo woke up using the power she shared and looked hell-bent on decimating the angel. His wounds were fully healed thanks to her vampire perks, and she ended up ripping her dress for him to consume. Weird, I know. They both vowed to destroy the angel, and the ghost showed up to serve as fuel for Leo's final attack. They asked him to consume their mana and power up before confronting the Angel Queen. The knight stepped up, and the souls of the trapped civilians started resurfacing as well. They all begged him to use them and save their hometown from the despicable void onslaught. Leo used his demon sword to collect their souls, and this was a scene straight out of Dragon Ball, to be honest. He proceeded to summon undead skeletons and used them to give the ghosts a fighting opportunity. He asked Celia to lead them in battle and protect him while he powers up for his final attack. She gave them some weapons and shared her powers with them. Meanwhile, Elphine was ready to head out when Aniroll came by and asked to join their conquest. She was ready for the smoke, despite her injury, and swore to lay down her life for the righteous cause of destroying the voids. What an admirable pursuit. Elsewhere, the skeletons were giving it their all alongside Celia. They made it seem like a cakewalk and massacred the voids with the simplicity of taking out the morning trash. Leo was amassing a ton of spiritual energy, while Elphine used her holy sword to aid Regina in blasting them down. Sakuya contributed her fair share, and all of a sudden, Celia was struck down from the skies. Even so, she wasn't willing to give up and motivated the skeletons to protect her and Leo. Before they realized it, Leo was amassing a spiritual bomb which could potentially wipe everyone out. However, the Mother Angel wasn't going to sit back and watch, and attempted to thwart his plans using her meteor shower. Thankfully, Celia saved our boy while Elphine and the rest were being chased by a gigantic void. Out of nowhere, the maid saved them in a jiffy and watched on as the skeletons were rampaging throughout the battlefield. Leo was finally ready to unleash his trump card, and the finale was upon us. He used the full force of his demonic sword, and Celia intervened to slice the building launched at him. With nothing to stop him, Leo was about to release its energy when the angel put up a barrier. Fortunately, Aniroll was planning on striking it down, and Elphine launched the motor into the air. Using her ultimate technique, she brought the barrier down, leaving the angel vulnerable and open to Leo's attack. With what seemed like a heavenly power, he turned the tables and obliterated the mother angel from the face of the earth. God damn, that's an attack that would put the likes of Gojo to shame. Soon after, the ghosts were ready to transition into the afterlife and bid Celia goodbye. The skeletons departed and the gang managed to meet up safe and sound. The cavalry arrived a tad bit too late and tried bossing everyone around. Leo recognized her as the elf hero and tried explaining her history to Celia, who was too busy reading a book. She brushed him off and started talking about her book. Soon after, they got back home and Blackus started debriefing Leo of the current situation in the city. The maid was ordered to scout Arel, and as soon as she started throwing a tantrum over the dress he gave Celia, the gorgeous mistress walked in looking like a bombshell. Our vampire princess was ravenous and insisted on sucking some blood. Meanwhile, Elphine was studying the voids from the island and speculated an incoming disaster. Oh man, what a cliffhanger this turned out to be. Let's hope Season 2 doesn't take long, because Leo was starting to grow on us. As always, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to stay updated. That's all for this episode. If you want more awesome content like this, please like, subscribe and share to stay updated.